everyone. My name is Lynne Harford. I'm a registered social worker, director of Pediatrics, and clinical supervisor with the Social Work Consulting Group. We are one branch of FunctionAbility alongside our partners Entwistle Power Occupational Therapy. And today we're coming together to talk about, COVID-19 and this sort of new reality that we're all in. We're kind of at the 6-week mark, and, some of the things that we were talking about as colleagues just even a couple of weeks ago has really shifted to some of the things that we're talking about now. And so we thought it would be really helpful to come together to share some of our ideas, perspectives, and strategies with all of you. And hopefully you'll find something that you can kind of take away and apply into your professional life and your family life at home. So today with me, I have some amazing colleagues. I have Wendy Gage, who is a registered social worker with the Social Work Consulting Group. She is also an emotional focused therapist and one of our pediatric social workers. We have Brenda Power Ahmad, who is an occupational therapist, and she is one of the founding partners of Entwistle Power Occupational Therapy. She is also a certified life care planner and heads up our CAT assessment team within the FunctionAbility family. And then we have Emma Fogel, who's a registered social worker with the Social Work Consulting Group. And Emma also heads up our MindCom program, which is a program for kids and adolescents who are dealing with issues around anxiety. So welcome, ladies. So happy to have you here today.
Hi, Lynn.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, as I said, Wendy, we've had some conversations along the way about how to kind of respond to COVID. And here we are, as I said, 6 weeks into this. Things have really changed. It's going on much longer, I think, than many of us anticipated. And there's a lot of feelings, I think, that are coming up in many different ways. And I guess I would ask you sort of at this stage in the crisis, like, what are people feeling? What's kind of normal to be feeling at this stage along the way?
Yeah. I want to say a lot of feelings, but I think what I'm hearing more and more these days is exhaustion. People feeling quite tired. And when I say exhaustion, I mean more emotional exhaustion. I know I talked to you a little bit about how it feels like I'm running a marathon that I didn't get to train for. And just like woke up one day, someone said, here's your number, now run. And I started to run. And every time I think I'm getting near the end, I'm not at the end. It's like there's not an end in sight, or I wonder where the end is. So a lot of exhaustion around that. It does take a lot of energy to deal with this particular situation for everybody, and that's pretty normal. I think the other thing that, just feeling a little bit sort of maybe frazzled or overwhelmed with emotion, feeling a range of emotions, sadness, frustration, anger, maybe annoyed by all the boredom. And some people might just feel very numb and frozen. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so having all of these really so many different feelings, and I know for myself, and I imagine for all of you as well, like it kind of ebbs and flows. Some days you feel like you're having a really great day, and then the next day you feel like, oh, today's a much more difficult day, sometimes unexpectedly and surprisingly as well. And so when we have these moments of all of these different competing, confusing feelings, like how do we manage these? What are some of the things that we can do?
Yeah, it's such a great question, right? It's like, what do I do with all these feelings? And especially for people who maybe enjoyed really stable mood throughout their lives, people who would say, like, usually I'm fine, but suddenly I'm not kind of feeling fine, or I'm not sure what to do with all these feelings I'm having. I think one of the things I like to think about is just, we often sort of put some demands on how we should be feeling, or we should on ourselves, right? And I would say, try not to should on yourselves. Like, feelings are feelings. They're not right. They're not wrong. They're not good. They're not bad. They just are. And that often what happens for people emotionally, it's actually when they're trying to make themselves or trying to expect themselves to feel something other than what they are feeling, that's when they get into a lot of trouble. That's when they start to really have difficulty managing the emotion that they're experiencing. The other thing I guess I want to say,
those expectations.
Absolutely. Like, I shouldn't be angry, or I shouldn't be scared. This is fine. I'm stronger than this. Or I shouldn't be sad. It's no big deal that, my kids' camp got canceled and I'm feeling sad that their camp got canceled, right? Well, no, those are normal human reactions. And the more that people can just sort of be compassionate and kind towards them, actually, the more likely they are to move on from the feeling.
Yeah. And I would agree. I think that, that self-compassion is such a big piece, and really just honoring where you're at each and every moment and knowing that that's okay. Like, this too shall pass, and, you'll have a better day the next day after that. So I know, Wendy, for so many people, I recognize as we're moving through this, and I'm sure you ladies do as well, that, we're therapists, we're fairly good copers generally, and I think we know how to kind of get through these things. But I also wonder about people who have sort of a compromised mood already. So they're already dealing with issues of anxiety or depression. What kind of strategies or thoughts do you have about those individuals and what they might, need to be thinking about as they're going through this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And let's be honest, okay? So, like, the general population that maybe is going to their family doctor for an antidepressant to be able to cope with the day-to-day stress that they deal with in their jobs is actually a high number. There's far more people taking medication to manage mood than you would know. And that's within the normal population. We're not talking about within a pathological population. We're talking about professionals who have families and jobs. And let's also say that the proportion of people that have like the fairy tale marriage or the fairy tale family is also really small. So for the normal person, there's life is stressful and life is hard, and life is extraordinarily stressful and extraordinarily hard right now. So I think one of the things I would say is that often when people have had problems with moods, they've gone and they've sought some help, or they've done some reading, they've really resourced themselves, and probably actually are in a good position to know what works for them, what doesn't work for them, what's helpful for them, what isn't helpful for them. And so really, like, putting those things into play. Sometimes we can just kind of put those on the back burner, right? Like, I'm not going to do my morning meditation because I'm doing fine. And now is not the time to say that that's on the back burner, right? This is the time when those things that help you get through your day, help you stay in the best situation you can get yourself into. This is a time to do those things. Just like you wouldn't go in the morning without brushing your teeth, consider this right now like brushing your teeth.
Thank you so much, Wendy. That's so helpful. And Brenda, I kind of want to come to you now, because I sort of think, like, with all of this COVID-19, our worlds have really collided. We are doing everything from home. We're working from home. We're exercising from home. We have our families at home. And I'm just wondering if you have any strategies about what we can be doing to really more effectively kind of get through these challenging days.
Of course, Lynn, and I think we've been in this circumstance now for several weeks already, right? And it probably looks like we're going to be here in self-isolation or working from home and trying to manage these multiple roles that many of us are carrying for several more weeks. So I think it's a good time to pause and take a purposeful pause and step back and have a look at how things are going, and have we been able to balance those roles well or decently, or is there a few things we might need to tweak to make it work a little bit better? So I think on a very basic level, have a look at the desk or the office space that you're working in. Ideally, if there's a space that is dedicated for work, that's going to help you be most productive. For example, I try to work in a room that has a door on it, and then when that door is closed, my family knows, please don't come in. I'm on a call or a conference call, or I'm doing something where I need to focus. And when that door is open, okay, I'm fair game now. Feel free to come in, and we can talk if you need me. And so that works fairly well for myself and my family. As well, look at the physical, like the desk and the computer that you're working at, and is it ergonomically set up for you? If you, I imagine most of the listeners are familiar with an occupational therapist in their life, reach out to your OT and send a picture of your workstation, and they might be able to give you some tidbits to adjust your workstation slightly to help with some of the pains that you're having. I know, Wendy, that worked for you and I, and you moved your computer, and it's helping with some of the neck pain that you're having. So very basically, the top of your computer monitor should be basically within the top 1 to 2 inches of your eye level. If you're wearing bifocals, it's okay for that to be a little bit lower to avoid the multiple, the repetitive neck movement that can cause neck and upper back pain. And then moving down into your chair, if you do have a chair that is adjustable, obviously that's optimal for you because you can adjust it to fit you. If not, and you're working on a normal kitchen chair or what have you, try to make sure that your lower back is supported. So if you have a small pillow that you can put into your lower back, it will help, or may help with some low back pain. Looking at the rest of your body in terms of your shoulders, your elbows, and your wrists, try to make sure that when you're typing, you're in a relatively neutral position, because if your shoulders are hiked or the keyboard is not at the right level, you're going to again find that that causes some neck and likely some upper back pain for you. And then down into the hips, the knees, and the ankles, you'll often hear occupational therapists or OTs talk about the 90-90-90 rule. And what we mean by this is that the angles of the hips, the knees, and the ankles should be approximately 90 degrees. So ultimately your thigh is going to be about parallel to the floor and your feet flat on the floor for the most ergonomic positioning. So if you can use some of those little tidbits to make a few changes to your workstation, I think that that will be helpful for you in terms of any of the increased neck and back pain. I think almost everybody I'm talking to these days are telling me about the increased back pain that they're having from having to sit at their office for, or their desk for, 7 or 8 hours straight. And don't forget to get up and walk around if you can every 30 minutes at least to, take a phone call, walking around on your headset if you can, or get a drink of water just to change up your body positions. And another thing that I found that is working for myself and many of the colleagues on our leadership team, we're using the acronym HOME to try and find a better balance during our day. So if you think about the word home, H-O-M-E, every day if you can try and do something under H for your health, so that could be for your mental health, such as taking a few minutes, as Wendy was mentioning, to meditate in the morning, or for your physical health, take a walk with your kids at lunchtime if you can. Under O, organization. So if you can, take 10 or 15 minutes during your day and clean out your closet, switch up your winter clothes to your spring clothes, or clean out that junk drawer you've been meaning to get to. Or for those of us who are working, organize your day or organize your work week, and hopefully that will help you be a little bit more productive. Under M is for meals. So try and make sure that at least most of the days of the week, you're taking some time to plan out nutritional meals for yourself and your family. I know that it's been so easy to reach for that bag of chips or, something that's really quick. Many of us have been doing that, but if you can make sure that you're keeping that routine of healthy meals as often as you can, and bring your family into that task with you, and make it a family endeavor. And I've heard some great feedback in terms of that being some fun family activities. And then finally, E is for experience. So every day, if you can try and experience something fun if you can, whether that's on your own, such as taking a half an hour and reading a chapter in a book that you're really enjoying, or with your family and play a board game, or watch a Disney movie has been popular. Every night in my house, we watch a Disney movie, and that's been fun. And I think the last thing that I want to say about trying to find that balance during these times, Lynn, is that none of us are going to be the perfect spouse and the perfect worker and the perfect parent and the perfect house cleaner and the perfect everything at this time. And really that's okay. I think that we need to step back, and I remind myself of this every day. It's really okay. We weren't successful in doing senior kindergarten and grade 8 and everything I needed to do today, and guess what, I'll try again tomorrow, or I'll try again next week, and that's really the best that we can do right now. And as I said, that's okay, and we need to forgive ourselves a little sometimes.
Yeah, those are really great tips and strategies, Brenda. So important. And I think one of the things I think about when you talk about sort of like the structure and the boundaries at home with family while you're trying to work is really the importance as well of having those really open conversations with one another about what you need, and really developing some new kind of guidelines and rules about how you're going to kind of operationalize life in sort of this new COVID reality. And I think that that's a really key piece and can make things run even more smoothly, for sure. So yeah, so as I was saying at the beginning as well, I mean, you know, everything is happening at home. All of our children are at home. None of them are in school. And these are really demanding times on every parent's energy, right? Trying to work, trying to take care of their kids. And so Emma, I'm just wondering now if you can kind of provide some insight into, you know, what parents can really be thinking about in terms of how to manage and kind of best support their children as they're working through this challenging time.
It's a great question, and I actually think it's an excellent segue from what Brenda was talking about, which is when I'm looking at my clients, I'm really dividing them into two groups, younger children and more adolescents. But across the board with families, the analogy that I'm using is that we're all on the football team together, right? And because we're all on the football team together, we all need to learn how to work with one another. And sometimes one of us may get a penalty, right? Like someone not respecting space or siblings fighting amongst each other, but really it is about we all kind of need to do this together, right? So when I'm talking about my younger clients, the younger kids, you know, I'm finding that a lot of them are actually doing quite well because they're home with mom and dad. They have school. It may not be as hands-on as it was, but they're really enjoying themselves. So now I think we can assume, even with younger children, that everyone kind of knows what's going on with COVID, right? So making sure that your kids, younger and older, have a good understanding of what is the virus, how they can protect themselves, right? Ensuring that they're managing their fears and worries. But again, like I said, for the most part, a lot of my younger guys are doing okay. It's the teenagers that I'm noticing as the weeks go on, and this is kind of what we are adjusting to, the new normal. My teens are really struggling. And it's important as parents that we remember, right, as a teenager, they are grieving an incredible amount of significant losses. So final hockey tournaments, final school performances, not being able to go to a prom, not getting braces off, not being able to get their license that they were taking lessons for. These are all huge losses for these kids. And we also have to remember that as a teenager, social connectivity is everything, right? It gives them a sense of purpose. It gives them confidence. It gives them overall happiness in the day. And even though, you know, many of our kids are Zooming or FaceTiming or Snapchatting, they aren't getting that face-to-face contact. And so it's really hurting them. So what I'm recommending to a lot of the parents that I'm working with is just acknowledging that grief in their kids, right? Having conversations about what do you miss? You know, if things go back to normal, what's the first thing that you want to do? Who's the first person that you want to see, right? So you're kind of generating that hope, that forward thinking, but also acknowledging that this is really hard. And when we're talking about teenagers specifically, there's a lot of really catastrophic thinking that's going to result in some pretty scary communication, right? I know a teenager that's typically very calm, very level-headed, and she's jumping to things like, I'm never going to see my friends again, or this is never going to go back to normal, and maybe even using some pretty scary communication like, I feel like I'm going to kill myself, right? They're jumping to those really intense moments of communication. So meeting your kids where they're at, right? Supporting them, keeping as much structure as you can, making sure that they have that social connectivity, whether it's online gaming, right? It's huge right now, but really just kind of showing your kids that you understand how difficult this is for them, right? Making sure that they're connected to the right supports, whether they need to be speaking to a therapist, maybe they need to be connecting more frequently with friends, but really it's just about managing, because this is the new normal and they are grieving, right? So kind of acknowledging that you're there with them.
Absolutely, Emma, that's so helpful. And one of the things that I've been really sort of reflecting on about this whole COVID is, you know, we're all having to learn how to do things differently, whether that's as professionals, as parents, as individuals. And in many ways, I see this as somewhat some interesting times in terms of the type of creativity that is starting to emerge as a result of this. Like I was walking the dog the other day and I saw like chalk on the sidewalk with numbers 1 through 10, and clearly it was a kid doing a math problem out there with pine cones. And you know, it's sort of getting us out of the way we used to do things. So I'm excited to think about how this is transforming our children and our teenagers in some very positive ways. And I don't know if you have any other comments on that, Emma.
I'm so glad you brought that up because, you know, amidst all this crisis and amidst the fear and the anxiety and the sadness and the grief, what I'm noticing is that so many of my clients and their families are really finding silver linings. Like kids that have never picked up an instrument are starting to play piano, or starting to write songs, or turning to art as a means to express themselves. Or, you know, TikTok, you got to acknowledge it, right? TikTok blown up, and all of these kids are creating, you know, sometimes it can feel a little annoying, but it's a really great way that these kids are expressing themselves and dancing and finding humor. And it's, you know, it's really exciting to see where some of our kids are taking this situation and finding some brightness to it. And I so agree with you.
Yeah.
Things coming out of this.
And just to add, I'm going to add one more piece onto that. Like, I think, so I have a background in art therapy as well. And, you know, that's the whole right side of our brain. So as we're not in these like structured linear times and we're in these places of uncertainty, this is where magic happens, right? This is where creativity stems from. So it's exciting. And I have no doubt we're going to see some really interesting things come out of this time. I'm wondering, Wendy, I mean, you are a very skilled pediatric therapist on our team. Any other sort of words of wisdom that you might be able to give to our colleagues in the, you know, our colleagues and other professionals and families out there with respect to their kids?
Yeah, a couple thoughts that I have. And often when I'm working with parents, I say to them, tell me how often you think you have to get it right with your kid for them to turn out okay. And I'll tell you that most people say 80%, 90%. That's usually, I sometimes have someone who maybe on to me a little bit and says 70%. But the truth of the matter is, and they've actually researched this, you only have to get it right 30% of the time for your kid to be okay. And that means 70% of the time you can screw up, right? And you can get it wrong. And all that matters when you get it wrong, because we all do, right? Like we all get annoyed by our kids, or we, you know, they're coming to us and they really need us and we just missed it completely. You know, we were off in some other space or whatever. All we need to do is just apologize. Like, you really needed me to hear you, or you really needed me to understand you, and I missed it. And I was a jerk back then, right? And letting them know. But, you know, and then I also think, like, if that's in normal times, that only 30% of the time we need to get it right. Like, we can be a little patient here. We're not teachers. We are not camp directors. And quite frankly, our children don't want us to be their teachers, right? Because when their teachers are giving them feedback, it sounds like feedback. And when we are giving them feedback, it sounds like criticism, right? And it sounds like we're saying, you're no good. And so we don't have to do that. And doing well enough is good, right? And that everybody's trying to get through this. And I guess the other thing I would say is that a lot of times people don't know how to talk about the bad stuff with their kids. And this is something certainly when I was working in a pediatric hospital that I would see a ton of, right? But the truth of the matter is, like, nobody is making this better. Nobody has got the magical powers to make this go away or to make this a good situation. There's a lot of loss, as Emma was talking about. There's a lot of not so nice stuff going on right now in terms of what's just happening out there in the world. And for all of us, when we have someone to talk to in a space that's safe to talk about the bad stuff, it's like, so we can't make the bad stuff go away, but at least I'm not alone in the bad stuff. And the same thing goes for kids, right? So telling them that it's okay when it's not okay doesn't help them. It leaves them feeling very much alone in the space that they're in. And what I also would say is just follow their lead. So if you have a really curious kid who's asking you a ton of questions, you're going to have to go there with them. And if you have a kid who says, I don't want to talk about it, I really don't want to talk about it, then you have to respect. They really don't want to talk about it. And you can say to a kid like that, look, if you do want to talk about it, I'm here, but I'll respect your space, right? You just follow their lead. Easier words said than done, but definitely helpful ones to guide
Absolutely.
you through the bad times.
There's one sort of final thought I have about that too, is I think about, you know, Emma, your work that you do with anxiety in kids, you know, so much of what can create that is, you know, kids needing that certainty in their life, right? And that predictability and that structure and that routine. And I'm mindful to think that this is an opportunity where as parents, we're modeling also for our kids that we can be okay in this place of uncertainty, and we can find things to keep us busy. And really, I think it'll be interesting to see sort of what children learn through this process about themselves and finding ways to be creative, find, you know, extra space to do things that they might not have done in the past. So difficult times, yes. Times of opportunity, I also think, yes. You know, we don't know how much longer this is going to last, and we're going to take it one day at a time. But I can imagine all of you are probably thinking what I'm thinking, which is, you know, we will get through this. I do see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I want to just kind of put it out there for everybody, including all of you, to just really give a moment of pause to think about just how amazing some of those first things are going to be, you know, when we get the green light to kind of get back to life, somewhat to what we knew it to be before, which is like, you know, who's that first friend, you know, you're going to go and hang out and have coffee with? You know, what is that first hug, you know, going to feel like? And we've kind of joked within our organization, it's going to be really long and it's going to feel really good. And so, you know, hold on to that and know that we're going to get there and that this too shall pass. And, you know, we're all in this together. I think that's the most important thing. Reach out to your friends, reach out to your colleagues, reach out to your OT, you know, Pete's and your social workers in your life. Like, we're all here to support each other and help each other along the way. And so I just want to kind of take that opportunity to thank all of you for being here today, sharing this time with me, sharing such amazing wisdom and perspective with our friends and colleagues out there. And really, from the bottom of our hearts here at the Social Work Consulting Group, FunctionAbility and Entwistle Power, I just want to wish everyone well. I hope you stay strong, stay safe, and know that we will get to the other side. And we look so forward to celebrating with you in person when that happens. So again, thank you to each of you for being here today, and we wish you well.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.